It may not be obvious, but I love Indiana Jones. Oft imitated but never bettered, I don't think there's another film series that comes as close to movie perfection in mainstream cinema. And that's despite the continuity errors and cartoon violence. Sometimes the little flaws just make us love things even more. It's a strong contender for my all-time favourite film series ever. And I admit, I'm stoked for Indiana Jones 5, and that's despite the absence of Steven Spielberg directing and Harrison Ford's age. He's the bomb, James Mangold is going to be good, and they seem to be slyly teasing us with a new casting announcement each week, and boy is it shaping up nicely. And in my excitement for Indy 5, I recently watched all the films again. Twice. Yes, even Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Although technically the second version of that I watched was my own fan edit I made years ago, which, hey, is actually better than the original version. And rewatching the films made me realise that along with all the amazing action scenes, the iconic imagery, the timeless music, all of which contribute towards the films making an immediate impact and being instantly memorable, the thing that really makes the film series stand a cut above the rest is the character of Indiana Jones himself. And that's because, apart from just being so cool and always dependably Indy, each film does give him a character arc, growth. But it's subtle. He lands perfectly between other screen icons like Han Solo and James Bond, who never really change, even in the Daniel Craig era, and Luke Skywalker, who some people think changed too much.
I'm gonna burn it down.
Raiders of the Lost Ark starts with Indy suffering from skepticism, failing against his rival, and forced to confront his past mistreatment of Marion, only to resolve all three issues by the climax of the movie. Temple of Doom sees Indy's motivation in life change from the pursuit of fortune and glory to having respect for cultural heritage and just doing the right thing. The Last Crusade has Indy overcoming his daddy issues and reconnecting with his estranged father. But Robin, I hear you say, the fall from grace that is Kingdom of the Crystal Skull doesn't give Indiana Jones a character arc? Aha, well, I'm glad you asked that because actually it does, and the film doesn't get enough, if any, credit for doing so. The problem is that it handles it so poorly that it's very easy to miss on your first viewing, and let's be honest, not many people make it past a first viewing of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. And I think that's one of the main reasons the fourth film is such a disappointment for so many people, including me, because it seems to lack the depth of character that the other films have. But the character arc is there, and in fact it's baked into the very substance of the film. It's just handled so badly that it gets lost in the mix of action, aliens, and atomic bombs. Put simply, Indy's character arc in Kingdom of the Crystal Skull is that through a combination of age, misfortune, and his own mistakes, Indy has lost everything. But by the end of the film, he finds more than he ever knew he had. It's set up very simply and quite elegantly at the beginning of the adventure by Jim Broadbent's character when he says,
Seem to have reached the age where life stops giving us things and starts taking them away.
He says this while Indy is lamenting the recent deaths of his dad and his lifelong friend, Marcus Brody.
Brutal couple of years. First Dad, then Marcus.
Immediately prior to this, Indy has been put on an indefinite leave of absence from the college at which he's worked for decades because of the Red Scare, and he's been betrayed by someone he counted as a friend. Indy is compelled to leave the only place he's ever called home, and frankly feels out of place in this new world where nothing can be taken at face value and evil hides in plain sight, behind the American flag even. It's a nice way in which the film uses the backdrop of the Cold War. But then, out of the blue, Indy ends up finding the son he never knew he had, who helps him repair relationships with an old friend he hasn't spoken to in decades, and the love of his life whom he abandoned. By the end of the film, Indy is no longer alone. He has a family. And he even gets a promotion. But this arc doesn't register with the viewer. And I think there are two main reasons that this film fails where the other films succeed. And that's what I want to break down in this video. The first way in which it struggles is with the MacGuffin, the artifact that Indy chases in each movie. In every single film, the MacGuffin either represents or reflects Indy's character arc. This is most obvious in The Last Crusade, where the search for the Holy Grail represents Indy's search for his lost father. The film even states it out loud.
I didn't come for the cup of Christ, I came to find my father.
And it's concluded wonderfully when Indy has to choose between seizing the Grail or taking his father's hand. And their repaired relationship is symbolized by Henry Jones Sr. acknowledging his son's individuality and inherent value by using his self-selected name for the first time.
Indiana?
Instead of
Junior?
The Ark of the Covenant not only represents everything Indy is skeptical about, but is the vehicle through which he finally defeats his rival, and through which he reconnects with Marion to repair their relationship. The Shankara stones are a metaphor for Indy's motivation. He pursues them for the riches they contain, literally diamonds in this case, and the fame they can bring.
Fortune and glory.
Alright movie, you said it better. But he ends the film by giving up the opportunity to enrich himself and respecting what the stones mean as cultural artifacts.
I understand its power now.
The Crystal Skull is unusual in that it is the first MacGuffin in the series to have a will of its own, to be able to communicate directly with the characters. It tells both Harold Oxley and Indiana Jones to return it to its own family, in a direct parallel of Indy's character journey through the film. Unfortunately, I don't think that parallel is made clear by the film, because the skull's motivation isn't revealed until the climax, the literal denouement, except by deliberately mysterious requests for it to be returned to wherever it came from. As an audience, we therefore don't know that the skull's motivation is to reunite with its family, and therefore we can't easily make a connection between the skull and Indy's own character arc the first time that we watch the film. Furthermore, unlike the Ark or the Shankara stones or even the Holy Grail, Indy himself doesn't seem that interested in finding the Crystal Skull. Sure, the film establishes that he had a teenage obsession with it and that once he's on the trail, his inner archaeologist becomes intrigued, but his motivation for going on the quest in the first place is really unclear. Does he go with Mutt Williams to find the skull, or to reconnect with Harold Oxley, or to rescue Marion, who he doesn't even realise is Marion at the start of the film? Because the film fails to sufficiently clearly establish Indy's own motivation for going on the adventure, we as an audience are given no direction or clue to connect the metaphorical significance of the Crystal Skull with the main character's character arc. But, despite these problems, I think we could make this connection, except for another big mistake that the film makes, and that mistake is Jim Broadbent. Now, I've nothing wrong with Jim Broadbent as an actor, and he gives a good performance as Charles Stanforth. But his character undermines Indiana Jones's entire character arc. It's clear he was conceived as a formulaic replacement for Denham Elliott, who died in 1992. They both fill that position of Indy's slightly bumbling English academic friend who gets him started on his adventure. And this is the problem. The film goes out of its way to establish Stanforth as the new Marcus Brody. And it does this not only by having them share a bottle of wine at Indy's home and contemplating the sadness of old age, but by having Stanforth resign as dean of the college in order to protect Indy from getting fired. Basically, Stanforth proves himself to be the best kind of friend that anyone could hope to have. He shows that Indy is not alone. So in the very scene in which we're introduced to the start of Indy's character arc, he's lost his job, he's lost his family, he's lost his long-life best friend, he's with a bloke who's gone above and beyond what any normal person would expect a very best friend to do.
I never should have doubted you, my friend.
As an audience, we're left wondering why Indy just doesn't shack up with Charles. So the film then has to invent another excuse for Indy to go away.
Where will you go?
Train to New York, overnight to London for starts. Might end up teaching in Leipzig. Heinrich owes me a favor.
Oh, he's got another friend who'll give him a job. Indy is so alone. For any character arc to work, the starting and end points need to register clearly with the audience, and the themes and the plot of the film have to reinforce it. But not only does the MacGuffin of Kingdom of the Crystal Skull only nebulously connect to Indy's character arc, but thanks to the character of Charles Stanforth, we don't even notice the starting point of Indy's personal journey. The consequence of this is that, unlike with the other three films, we as an audience are emotionally disengaged from the character of Indiana Jones because the film mishandles the very establishment of his character arc. It would have worked so much better if Stanforth had been a brash, bullying dean who fires Indy on the spot, played by someone younger who represents the paranoia of the post-war generation, a character who only begrudgingly gives Indy his job back at the end of the film. The sad thing is that I think the only reason that Spielberg and George Lucas and the screenwriter David Koepp didn't do it that way is because they felt compelled to replace Marcus Brody, who, in the eyes of fans like me, is irreplaceable. Of course, this one change to the script wouldn't have totally redeemed the film. There are many other problems to fix. But it would have made it more satisfying, and therefore less forgettable. And the one thing an Indiana Jones film should never be is forgettable. So, hopefully, this is the major thing that Indiana Jones 5 will get right. The tricky art of having a character arc that registers clearly with the audience, ties directly to the MacGuffin, but isn't ladled on too heavily, but with a lightness of touch, so that the film remains a fun but unforgettable adventure. Easy. But those are just my thoughts, and I'd love to know what you think, so please tell me in the comments below whether you agree with my analysis of Indiana Jones's character arcs in the first 4 films, and what you'd like to see in Indiana Jones 5, if you think it should be made at all. There's a debate about that. Thank you all for watching this video, well done for making it this far, and a huge particular thank you to our Patreon supporters and YouTube members who make this channel possible, and who get exclusive access to mini podcasts every week. Thank you all. Click on screen to watch more if you enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.